everybody. This is Steve Politi live from High Point Solutions Stadium for another edition of the Rebuilding Rutgers podcast. Here, as always, with road-weary beat writers Keith Sargent, Ryan Dunleavy. We're going to have a segment on our little trip to Penn State here at the end of this thing.
Didn't we do road-weary, though, earlier in the year?
Well,
it was a bad trip.
Spoiler alert. And I think this is the first time, I guess, we've been a tight team, a tight-knit group. We really get along well. This was almost the end of this partnership in this car coming back from State College.
Guess who's the odd man out
on this road. There was a moment. I'm just going to tease you. We're going to get to this at the end, but there was a moment where Sarge and I were in the car, and I look at him and say, "Well, we could back up and go and just leave Dunleavy in Drums, Pennsylvania. That's the name of the town we were in." I don't know how we got there, but we'll explain all that later. But let's talk some football first, obviously. Not an outcome we were surprised at, 35-6 loss to Penn State. You know, again, this is a game that really could have been a lot different early on had they converted a couple of chances, but this is an offense that just can't score.
Yeah, it's the same game. Yeah. And it's a much better game than last year's same game. Like, last year it was the same game every time they played a really good team, and by same game it was an ass-kicking. And this year it's the same game, and it's this game that kind of feels like maybe Rutgers could do this at halftime, and then in the second half you realize the other team's much better. Rutgers doesn't have enough depth. They make one or two huge mistakes, that a fake punt that doesn't work, a pass interference that leads to a touchdown. The other team capitalizes, and Rutgers loses by 25 to 30 points or something. So that's pretty much what this game was in a nutshell.
Right, and no margin of error either. I think that's the big thing. You have a 17-play drive, and whatever it was, 15-play drive, and you get all the way down there. You know, if there's one mistake, that's it.
That's exactly it.
And you get 3 points, and Penn State needs 90 seconds to get a touchdown.
Right, exactly.
And Chris Ash, we obviously pressed him on it after the game, and he talked about the wide receivers not being open, and when they were open, that the quarterback, Gio Rosino, wasn't able to actually connect on it. And really, I think he pinned more of the blame on the wide receivers. I don't know if you guys got that.
He's been much harder on the wide receivers post-game Saturday and today than he has been at any other point all season.
But, and that's why I asked the Hunter Hayek play where third down, you're goal within the 10-yard line. It was just a bad pass. You overthrew him.
Yep,
that could have been a touchdown right there.
And you had
on the quarterback. That's not on the wide receiver.
That is on the quarterback. The numbers you had too were just striking stuff about where this is, and this is going to be the next segment. I want to get right into the details on why this passing game is the way it is. But the numbers are just.
They went into the week averaging 127 yards. They threw for 43 this past week, so that now they're averaging 118 yards per game, and that's even counting Morgan State, which they padded their numbers a little bit in that game. So 118 yards per game they're averaging through the air. Not since 1981. Dunleavy wasn't even born in 1981.
That's true.
And I'm not making fun of Dunleavy. Wow. Jerry Kill was a sophomore in college in 1981. Not since 1981 have they had a lower passing yards per game average. That was 107 yards in 1981. So we're talking a long time since they've had a passing offense this bad.
You mentioned, just to tie those two things together, you mentioned the third down play to Hunter Hayek. Politi mentioned how they have no margin for error. I didn't realize this live till I went back and watched the game on TV. The second down pass wasn't actually deflected by the defensive lineman's arm when he jumped up. Gio threw it off his helmet, and that's how.
Oh my gosh!
When Hunter Hayek had a step, and we're like, "Oh, that's going to be a touchdown!"
Yep.
And we're like, "Oh, it was knocked down." It was actually thrown off the defensive lineman's helmet.
Oh boy!
No margin for error. Like, the guy didn't even make a play. You just an unlucky bounce cost you a touchdown and a field goal, and now you're losing.
All right, let's dive into this, because the three of us agree that this is the area that's holding this program back under Chris Ash. They're better in measurable and leaps and bounds in a couple areas than they were last year, especially defensively. But this, and even the running game, they're better in almost every way. This is the one way they're not. If I had to put a gun to your head, pinpoint one reason why the passing game's not where it is, what do you think it is? What's the biggest problem?
I'm going to say coaching. And,
really?
And it's weird for me to say that because, again, but when you're talking about, getting guys open, it's a big field. Schematically, I think they could do more. And I did. I was like Dunleavy. I went back to watch, and it's hard. It's a little harder on the TV copy, on TV tape, to see just. But I'm going to say coaching. You got to do more to get these guys, whether it's more drags or just again. They're the guys who are supposed to spend 16, 18 hours a day doing it. But I'm going to say coaching that we're week 10. I know Chris Ash talked about how a lot of these guys weren't in spring camp. They had all training camp, 10 weeks. These guys who are freshmen shouldn't be freshmen anymore. I mean, they should be better. You should develop them better. I'm going to say coaching.
Off your point, drags and stuff. You just that slot fade that we talked about, that third down play to Hunter Hayek. That's the first time I've seen a slot fade. I didn't even know that was in the playbook. Yeah. I haven't seen any slants really. I haven't seen any ins. I haven't seen any comebacks. I don't even know what routes they're running because they're never open.
So you think it's coaching too?
No, I would say it's probably some combination of confidence / youth. Like I just think they failed at it for so long now that this is 2 years of just being a miserable offense. Right. That I don't know if the players actually believe they can get open, if they have the ability, like the actual knowledge, college football knowledge, experience, confidence to actually do it. Right. Like I think it's going to take doing it to do it, and it's chicken and the egg, right? Like when is it going to happen? I think it's some combination of the wide receivers haven't done it, so they don't know how to do it, and the quarterbacks haven't done it, so they don't know how to do it. So like, how do you break through? Even against Morgan State, they didn't really pass the ball.
And that's fascinating because I was going to say it's the quarterback stupid. But then I'm looking back. I'm actually looking at the game notes. Jimmy Gill's fine game notes, as always, before this game. And you just remember that. Chris Laviano, who no one's going to remind as being Dan Marino, the last time they played Indiana, the two teams combined for 1,233 yards. Rutgers scored 55 points and came back from 25 points down with this explosive passing attack.
Indiana.
At Indiana.
They played at Indiana.
At Indiana. Is it as simple as... I mean, really, this team just does not have any playmakers. And this is, I keep on coming back to this, and I say it 1,000 times, that this program produced how many NFL wide receivers? I'm not sure there's one even good college receiver at this point. I know they're young, but certainly a lot of young guys are playing across college football. Why is there not one guy on this team who's a reliable target? I just don't understand it.
I think it's a trust thing. I just don't – I like confidence, trust. Yep. I just don't think that they trust these guys to do it. That team had Leonte Carew. There is no – he had 3 touchdowns.
Absolutely. Yep.
But one good offense player. Robert Martin has 2 career 3-touchdown games against Indiana.
Yeah,
against Indiana,
I know.
2 and 3 times he scored. So does that mean he's going to get 3 touchdowns this game? Rutgers just don't have the trust to give him the ball that many times, I guess. So
right.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's coaching or if you want to pin it on the quarterback, but issue is Chris Ash has brought in 4 quarterbacks now, 2 grad transfers, his own guys. And he's still playing a Kyle Flood recruit who has 0 offers. And that's no knock against Gio, who we all think is a winner, and you can do some things with him. But I don't know if you could pass the ball. When it's a minute 13 left in a half, and you have relatively good field position at the 35-yard line, and you're down by 14-6, and you can't throw the ball, it's
a lack of confidence.
It is a lack of confidence, but you're making it too simple. I mean, if Gio throws a 25-yard pass and gets intercepted, Penn State's still not in scoring position.
Yeah.
It's a minute 13 left. You have 2 timeouts.
Totally agree.
That's a major issue.
And you bring up the Gio thing, and this goes right to the next thing we wanted to talk about. I don't think he's certainly not the long-term solution at quarterback. I think we've just seen it. He is a winner. He's won 3 games. I give him a lot of credit. He doesn't turn the ball over, but I think he's missing targets, missing open guys. I think he's not seeing open guys, and I don't think he's very accurate. So he's a senior now, going in. A year left. That's what I mean, going into next year. My problem is now, Johnathan Lewis, you've burned his red shirt. He has not played. He was hurt with a high ankle sprain. And I asked Chris Ash today about it. Do you have to see this kid for extended periods so you have a better idea of what you've got in your freshman quarterback? His answer was no. We're trying to win these 2 games, which I understand. But if that's the case, and if he doesn't play, well, then we're going into 2019 with the same problem 2018 with the same problem we had in this year. We don't know who the quarterback is.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking the wrong person because I've been banging the drum all year that he needs to play more. And even this past week, I mean, Chris Ash talked about how once they fell behind, it became a passing game, and they don't trust Johnathan Lewis to throw the ball. Mm-hmm. Essentially, what he said, which is the problem. Well, what about in the first half where you're down in the red zone and you're looking? That wasn't what Johnathan Lewis was doing earlier in the year. So my point is, yes, it's going to be an issue. We're going to be talking about it during the offseason. We're going to be talking about it in the spring. We're going to be talking about it in training camp. Why Johnathan Lewis didn't play more. You're going to go into a pivotal year 3 with a quarterback who does not have any experience.
I want to add 2 things here. One, I think Chris Ash would rather do anything. I think he'd rather have dinner with the 3 of us than talk about injuries. And I think Johnathan Lewis is more injured than anybody's letting on. I'm not letting out state secrets here. If you watched him in warm-ups before the game, he's still walking gingerly on his ankle. I think part of it is they're afraid of him having some sort of catastrophic aggravation of a minor injury that, then therefore limits him December, January, February, March. So I think that's part of it. Chris Ash isn't going to tell you that he's really injured, but I think he might be. And then the second thing is, I would not start. I know you might. I would not start Gio again. I would not start Lewis against Indiana. I'm on the Chris Ash train of you have to win these 2 games up until you lose one of the games. If you lose to Indiana, I would play Johnathan Lewis the entire game against Michigan State. Get your answer. But if you beat Indiana, I would play Gio.
You're absolutely right. I'm on
play
board with
Gio. I don't care if you don't. Worrying about what you have in 2018 is 2018's problem. You play to win the 2 games until you lose one of them.
Totally agree. Start Gio. But that being said, when you're throwing for 43 yards and your offense is not doing, you're moving the ball effectively, but you need to do a game-changing play. Play Johnathan Lewis.
Right.
So I'll ask you
week,
two.
if he's healthy.
Do you play Kyle Bolin? We saw Kyle Bolin. He can pass.
I said it after the game.
We've moved on with Kyle Bolin.
So you don't want to see Kyle Bolin.
That
their
hurts
best
back in
chance
the
of
barn.
a passing offense is Kyle Bolin. If that's what we all really want to see. He's when you're down 14 in the third quarter, do you put him in? Because he's your best chance to pass the ball.
Interesting. I think once you moved on past him, you've just moved on.
No, but I think Ryan's right. If it becomes a passing game, who gives you the best opportunity to throw the ball? It's probably him.
Right.
But either way,
So if you were hypothetically speaking, Rutgers is down 28-14, 4 minutes left in the third quarter against Indiana. You're the coach. Would you put in
I said
Kyle
that
Bolin?
with 1:13 left.
I'm staying with you.
And people were ripping me for it, including you guys. With a minute 13 left, I would have thrown in Kyle Flood. Minute 13 left in the
Kyle Flood?
Oh, boy.
Oh, my
Freudian slip. Whoa. Sound the alarm.
Throw Kyle Flood a couple
I've thrown him some places.
In High Point Solution Stadium, there might be security that's going to be coming in.
That'll cancel the podcast. Let's move on to true or false before we get back to that. As always, I'm going to give you a statement. You're going to tell me if it's true or false. We'll discuss things at the end. All right. Number 1, true or false? The fake punt against Penn State was a good call.
Yes.
False.
True.
False.
Okay.
If I say yes on that test, it is.
Rutgers, number 2, Rutgers will be able to run the ball for 200 yards against Indiana.
True.
The
11-point line, and this is 11 points. Indiana's favored by 11 points. That is much too high.
Much too high. True.
Where would you put it?
I thought it was going to be like 4.5.
Yeah.
I did
Sarge
say 10.
10.
I did say 10.
I'm surprised
I would say a touchdown.
But after thinking about it, I agree with you. So
right.
I'll say
coaching is the number 1 problem with the wide receivers. True or false?
true.
False.
Jay Neiman is the most undercredited person in this football program. Defensive coordinator Jay Neiman. True or false?
True, and I feel pretty strongly about it.
Yeah,
True.
we'll discuss that. Janarian Grant is becoming a liability. True or false?
A liability, false. A non-factor, true.
Agree with that. I'll say false.
All right, the percentage chance that Rutgers can make a bowl is 50%. True or false?
False.
Is 20%. True or false?
Probably false.
Probably false. Yeah.
Is less than 5%. True or false?
False. I'll give them between 5 and 20.
No, not less, but that's all I say false,
Right, yeah.
but probably 10%.
Yeah.
A 13-0 Wisconsin team is not going to make the national playoff. True or false?
False.
National item.
You better say true. You've been saying it all day.
I've been saying true because basically it boils down to if Oklahoma wins out and they're going to take either Clemson or Miami. If Georgia beats Alabama and Alabama's unbeaten in the SEC championship game, they're taking both Georgia, obviously, because they won the SEC championship, and they're taking Alabama. So, true.
So, true.
At
All right.
what
True,
point,
true or false? We don't discuss
At what point, though, is beating Alabama, if they beat Alabama, at what point is that,
If
if
Alabama-
they beat UConn women's basketball? Like,
True
you
or-
don't beat Alabama.
True or false? The basketball team is much better than last year.
False.
Wow.
They're better, but not much better.
Okay. And then finally, true or false, Dunleavy gets whiny when he's hungry. True or false?
True.
How many
boy.
true? How emphatically
Oh,
can
my
I go
gosh.
on a true?
That's
on that?
just a little teaser.
I mean, that's not really the only time I get one.
That's just a little teaser for later. Do you want to talk about Jay Neiman and you?
I do. I asked a couple guys about him, Wilkins and Joseph, today. They both said he deserves a lot of credit for this defensive turnaround. I think Chris Ash is a defensive coach who said many times that he's pretty hands-off with the offense. He spends most of his time on defense. So I think we tend to give him a lot of credit. The media, the fans, the public give him a lot of credit. And then when players make plays like Kai Hester or whatever, we give them a lot of credit. And I think the guy who gets squeezed in the middle there is Jay Neiman.
Yep.
And he is calling the plays. Everybody I ask, Jay Neiman is calling the
calling
plays.
the
Chris
defenses.
Ashton isn't calling it. It's not some, Prince of England job where you're just a placeholder. No, Jay Neiman is doing it, and I think the defense is so vastly improved and doing with. I've been reluctant to write this in print, but I'll say it on here. A no-name defense is really what they have. I think Neiman is probably getting the least credit of anybody who's doing a good job.
All right, let's go through this. You said there was less than 5% chance of bowl, or no? Because this is the 5 and 7 thing. We've discussed this ad nauseum.
Yes,
you have more clarity on that. You looked at the numbers again, and it's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you have 19 spots. You have 58 teams qualified. You basically have about 19 spots. There's 20 teams at 5 wins. Not all those 20 teams are gonna get there, but then you have another 25 teams that are in the same boat as Rutgers at 4 wins. And more important, so basically, I would say that the odds are there's going to be enough teams that are qualified. They're going to fill all the bowl spots, so you won't even be talking about 5 and 7. So even if they were 5 and 7, right now there's 11 teams ahead of them in the APR.
Yeah, forget
at 5 and 7. So
Thanks,
Rutgers,
Kyle.
you'd have to have 11 spots available. And again, really, as simple as it gets, I don't think they're going to beat Michigan State.
Yeah.
I think they could very well beat Indiana, and we'll talk about that later, but I don't think they're going to beat Michigan State.
All right, so let's go straight to the fan base that we pissed off this week, and a combination of that is also the angry tweets that go together usually. And here we go, a familiar song. Who could have possibly seen this coming? That we would go to State College and Dunleavy would piss people off. I would never have imagined that would be the case, right? It's a good song. It's growing on me. The Penn State fight thing's growing on me. All right, so just to set the scene, we've sat here in the stadium and we've looked out at High Point Solution Stadium, which has 54,000 seats, and there's been roughly 22,000 people in the stadium, and we've ripped it. So Dunleavy is sitting in the stadium. He looks out at Beaver Stadium, which has 107,000 seats, and there were some empty seats. And
there were some empty sections.
This is what Dunleavy tweets. He tweets out, "Lots of seats to be had in the State College today. 2 losses, and people are saying no thanks." That gets retweeted by someone at a Penn State paper, and this is going to come as a big surprise.
It says #PSU on it. So.
It come as a big surprise.
So
you got destroyed.
Basically, the sections that were open, and this was that kickoff, because by the middle of the second quarter, it was completely full. But
Yeah,
the
were
sections that were
100,000
open
people there.
were the student sections, right?
Yeah, and the middle tier.
This is, but
In like a club suite where people are
But
probably
I didn't
getting.
know that. Did you know that's where they have their club
I kind of
suite?
figured it because that's where the mezzanine level. But either way, so the sections that were open were student. They have 40,000 students go to these games. 30,000 students go to these games. Rutgers has trouble getting 10.
And don't we rip Rutgers? It's not like I'm
No,
patting
but the
Rutgers
point
on
is,
the
you're
back.
looking at the sections that have students that for a 12 o'clock game, they might have some exam. Who knows what's going on with the students?
Come to the
It
game.
was
they're out drinking. is what they're
completely
doing.
packed. Like 10 minutes before the game, completely packed. They're doing like chants. It was an amazing atmosphere.
No, it wasn't.
It was
It
a
wasn't.
very good atmosphere.
I will say, the crowd was a little dead. I wouldn't call it amazing. We've seen much better, but it was certainly not a bad crowd. I mean, anybody who shows up to that
I mean, we
stadium.
were all there 2 years ago. It was a much better atmosphere. And it was a night game, but it was a much better atmosphere 2 years ago than it was. It was a whiteout.
We had Brett Kavargast on Twitter say, Butker's beat reporter, comma, you know a lot about empty seats. That was the one I laughed at. I chuckled. You got a meaner one?
I got a couple, yeah. I'll save the meanest one for last. So this is a play off my Saquon Barkley. Where would he fit in the crowded Rutgers backfield?
We're familiar with that.
At the Focused tweeted, I just don't know where Ryan fits in this crowded bleacher seat.
Wow. Okay. That's a little obtuse, but I like it. Okay.
Then we have Ben Feller. Over 107,000 people at the game. This guy clearly doesn't know the difference between attendance and announced attendance, but over 107,000 people at the game. The hell you talking about?
No!
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah,
all right.
I think that was Sarge's favorite.
Yep.
And then hands down the meanest would be at Bevraz, Bevraz. My man, do something about that oily forehead.
That is just, I love it.
That's
all right, you got a mean tweet too, right? What happened, Sarge?
The gift that keeps on giving is E.J. Barthel.
Who didn't even talk about that?
Who,
well, set the stage for that one because that was some great fine journalism.
I let
that
the
you did
first
on
two
Friday.
go. I think both of us the first
tell
two
people
go.
who E.J. Barthel.
E.J.
He's
Barthel was a former
letter
Rutgers
winner.
recruiting coordinator
And letter winner.
Played at Rutgers, in early 2000s under Graciano. He was a recruiting coordinator for about a year during presiding over an office that literally was violated NCAA rules.
Got the school
got
on
Rutgers
probation.
on probation.
Yes.
He was cleared by the NCAA. I have to note that, but he has basically you're not celebrating his tenure, as a Rutgers fan. So now he's at Penn State. There was some controversy around that, but now he's at Penn State doing the same stuff. Ironically, still doing stuff on social media. So earlier in the week, James Franklin really is as PC as it gets when it comes to giving credit to the other team. Not E.J. Barthel, because he is literally firing off tweets, making fun of, saying chop Rutgers, using their old mantra under Kyle Flood, Graciano, which they haven't used under Chris Ash. So he's firing those off. We ignored those because really it's, But then he finally.
We might be more Jersey than you.
Trolled Rutgers. It was a definition of a troll. That saying that Penn State might be more Jersey than Rutgers. Couldn't ignore that. Fired up a story, 350 words. I knew it was gonna. People were gonna talk about it. People were already talking about it. I don't have the level of Dunleavy mean tweets. I mean, I do have one of those Butgers, like you're so soft Butgers type thing. Someone said, talked about roster. They're confusing a different reporter. That's Dunleavy's thing. But I would say probably the best one was Jason, at JCoff55. Who cares? Former employer is irrelevant, which is true. Just like this article.
Oh,
that also might be true.
There you go.
That also
Zing.
might be true. It doesn't mean that in this day, we're gonna write that story. I'm sorry, we ignored the first two. It was a story.
And this is a great transition to the story of our trip home from Penn State, because when you say we are more Jersey than you, you aren't, because all you have to do is go there. So let me just set the stage. All right, we're done working at 4:45. We finish our stories. I make what I think. It seems to be like a good decision as the driver of the car. Hey, let's get in the car. Let's get on I-80. Let's just put some miles behind us, and then we can eat someplace along the way.
Correct.
That makes sense, right? Stop at 6:30, have a meal on the road.
And I wasn't that hungry. I mean, I had eaten a good breakfast at the hotel.
Right.
I did not.
And because
they had food in the press box, right?
Right. Only because Dunleavy cannot eat anything. He couldn't eat breakfast. He could not eat the lunch that they provided us at the stadium, which was a fish sandwich. It wasn't bad. Anyway.
Chicken marsala at 9:30 a.m.
And a fish
Who
sandwich.
wants that?
So we're in the car.
They had plenty of they had pasta salad, rice.
9:30.
Dunleavy's in the back seat.
Put out some pancakes.
He's hungry. He's unhappy. We're on I-80.
You didn't eat the pancakes at the hotel, by the way.
There were no pancakes.
There were waffles.
You get outside. You get on I-80. Sarge's shotgun. Dunleavy's in the back. You get outside, a little bit outside State College, and all of a sudden, it was like we were driving on the surface of Mars. And I swear, I looked out the window and I saw Matt Damon harvesting potatoes to eat. And I'm talking. That's a movie reference that Dunleavy clearly have gotten. I'm happy about that.
I got it.
So we're driving for a while, and those blue signs that say, here's a restaurant. Well, there's no blue signs because there's no restaurants.
Because it ain't Jersey.
Dunleavy gets out his phone, and he plugs in restaurants near me, and there's an Applebee's, and the Applebee's is 4 miles off the interstate. So he's so hungry and miserable, and it's clear that we're not going to be able to go another 2 hours without this. So we get off the interstate, and we drive 4 miles all the way.
You would have thought it was 40 miles.
To
the
Applebee's, and we get to the Applebee's. And it's like it's like a Soviet era bread line at the Applebee's. There are people waiting outside, banging on the windows. The place is over. This Applebee's is overrun. It's as if there's no restaurants within 45 miles because there are no restaurants within 45 miles of the Applebee's.
Well, there was there was a restaurant within 40. Yeah, there was one Perkins right next door, and they had a 25-minute.
The last person under the age of 83 to eat at Perkins, it was 1997, and that place was overrun.
Tried. And we actually tried.
So we went in the Perkins. The hostess said 5-minute wait. 2 minutes later, and somebody else walks in. The wait's up to half an hour.
I'm like, she's lying to one of us. We get back in the car, drive 4 miles.
No, we go to Seats.
We tried to go to a gas station, couldn't get food there. Get back on the interstate, and now we have Dunleavy and Sarge are calling restaurants along the way. And like friendly
to get off the highway.
Of course, I'm not going to do that again. We can't just keep stopping. So the Friendly's has a 20-minute wait. I mean, every restaurant
we called Olive Garden, and predictably, you were like, "This is the 5-star restaurant of this part of Western Pennsylvania."
You couldn't have gotten into the
Central
90-minute wait. 90-minute wait at Olive Garden. I mean, I can go to the Olive Garden anytime I want in New Jersey. And people are like, "You're eating here?" Like, there's 20 restaurants around, 20 Italian restaurants in a walking distance that are better than that.
So finally, a blue sign's on the interstate, and in the little thing it says Evans Roadhouse off this exit. And I said, well, let's give this
new sponsor of the Rebuilding Rutgers podcast. Evans
maybe this is a chain restaurant I had not been familiar with. I don't know Evans Roadhouse, so we call it. And you have the tables available. Of course, sure. Yeah, this place is empty. Oh, great. Okay. So we go to Evans Roadhouse. It looks like it's in Drums, Pennsylvania.
Drums.
It looks like a fishing shack you would see on the edge of some lake. It's this dilapidated building.
It was quaint.
We go in there. Dunleavy at this point is so hungry. I thought he was going to move there and become a chef at Evans Roadhouse. The way he ate the nachos. Well, and the moral of the story is, folks, this is not New Jersey.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, really, it's not a good drive.
I mean, you knew it was bad when we got there, and like literally, you sit down, you take your jacket off. Dunleavy was ordering the food like, as soon as
she was like, "Can I get you some waters?" I was like, "Yeah, and 12 wings."
Yeah, that's exactly the way it happened. The food was actually pretty good. There was a fireplace.
I was paying for it later.
Yeah, I paid for it later.
Pay for it later.
Yeah.
All right. There's a story.
Which leads us to this week's road trip, which I have been left off.
Well, yes. And Indianapolis is a good road town, as people will know.
St. Elmo's.
Got a little St. Elmo's reservations. Oakley Bistro on Friday night. Dunleavy's not going.
Now you guys know where to find them and harass them while I'm at home. Go in one of those places.
Come visit us at Oakley's Bistro on Friday night. All right, there's our road trip story. Predictions. Hey, Indiana, another good segue. This has been a good transitional show. Another good segue. Indiana, the key game on the schedule here. What do you think? Who's going to win and why? Go ahead, Sarge.
I think they're going to win.
Nostradamus.
Yeah, I think they're going to win.
Wow.
And I think they're going to go back to the game plan, from 2 weeks ago. What makes them successful? It's going to run the ball, and I think Dunleavy kind of nailed it with Robert Martin, guy who's had some success. I think Gus Edwards is going to run. I think you're going to talk about a game plan that's going to have, heavy dose of run. Go back to, keep it simple, and I think they're going to win. I think they're 21-17.
Oh, all right. Interesting. Dunleavy?
I can't catch Sarge in the standings, so I'm going to just pick what I think is going to happen.
That's probably what we should be doing in the first place.
Yeah, rather than pick opposite.
Just trying to, on our imaginary rivalry here.
And I think they're going to win, too.
Really?
I really do. I don't care that they're an 11-point underdog. Chris Ash pretty much laughed in my face when I asked him if they used that as motivation.
Well, when I asked him
the not the first time he's done that.
No, but I really believe this team has, and let's not call it what it is. That wasn't a crazy question, because Chris Ash comes in his post-game press conferences after every win and says, no one thinks we could have won this game, so let's not pretend he doesn't use it, because he does. He just doesn't want to admit he uses it.
Right.
But you don't come in the Illinois press conference.
Does, right.
Yes. So, yeah, I think they've kind of rallied around the nobody believes in us. Obviously, nobody believes in them this week except Sarge and me, maybe you. Same kind of thing. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. Indiana doesn't run the ball. It's a very interesting game because Indiana is a pass attack. Rutgers.
They have two quarterbacks who basically have the same stats. I mean,
that's what Purdue
Richard
had.
Legault is going to start, according to what I've seen on Twitter today. So.
Yeah, that's what Purdue had, too. Two quarterbacks with very similar stats. That didn't work very well against Rutgers.
Yeah.
So I kind of think Rutgers will do what they do. They'll eat up the clock. Indiana's last in the Big Ten in time of possession. That plays right into Rutgers' hands. Mm-hmm. The longer they can chew up the clock, the better. So I think Rutgers will probably run the ball, run out the clock, win 28-21.
It's very interesting because the winner of this game gets to play in a do-or-die, for ball. The losers home for the holidays. It's an interesting game.
I'll raise my score. I think it'll be more high-scoring. 35-28.
Wow, I think his offense go 30. Okay, I'm going to go the other direction. I just think that the problem here is when they've beaten Illinois and they've beaten Maryland, they beat teams with equal talent. I think Indiana has more talent. They came into the season with more talent. I think they've got better skill positions. They're going to score. They're going to score a lot of points. They're going to throw the ball. They're going to move the ball. I just think this is one of these games where Rutgers is going to struggle to keep up for all the reasons we've outlined here. They just do not have a margin of error. They don't have a passing game still. If you couldn't pass it against Maryland, you're not going to be able to pass it against anybody in the conference. So Indiana is another team that they're going to struggle with that. I see this is going to be like a high-scoring kind of 37-28 victory for the Hoosiers of Indiana. There you go. Any other grievances you want to air before we're done? No? Little plug for Evans Roadhouse.
Yeah,
no,
Evans. I mean, if they're not,
you don't want to
just lining up trying to
that place. Yeah, that place right now is.
If you're in Drums, Pennsylvania, you cannot go anywhere other than Evans.
Anybody
trying to get a free meal
anybody who's listening and goes to Evans Roadhouse, like next time they're in Pennsylvania, please tweet at us.
Next time you're in Drums, Pennsylvania, lady, and we won't be there for another 2 years, and the three of us have resolved to get better jobs before then. Okay, logging off from the Rebuilding Rutgers podcast on that note. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.